The school said boys will be boys after a bully hurt my son. So I exposed them on the news and watched their whole reputation collapse. My name's Ava, and this story is about my son, Logan. He's 10. Quiet kid, kinda bookish. Loves dinosaurs, Legos, and anything to do with space. He's not the kind of kid who roughhouses or picks fights. Honestly, I've always admired how gentle he is. So when I got a call from his school one Tuesday afternoon, I figured it was about the science fair. Maybe he forgot to turn in his permission slip. But the voice on the other end didn't sound routine. It was the school nurse. Mrs. Carter. Logan's fine now, but he had an incident during recess. You should probably come in. My heart did that thing. You know, that tight feeling when you know something's wrong but you're not getting the whole story. I grabbed my keys and drove down, trying not to imagine the worst. When I walked into the nurse's office, Logan was sitting on the little cot with an ice pack pressed against his cheek. His lip was swollen, there was a scrape on his forehead, and his glasses were broken, one side bent completely out of shape. I rushed over. Logan, what happened? He didn't want to talk at first. Just kept shaking his head, eyes down. The nurse cleared her throat awkwardly. There was an altercation on the playground. An altercation? I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. With who? Before she could answer, the vice principal walked in, Mr. Simmons. Middle-aged guy. Nice enough face, but with that passive, corporate tone that tells you nothing's really going to get solved. Mrs. Carter, he started, I want to assure you we've already spoken with the students involved. Who hurt my son? I asked more firmly this time. He glanced at Logan and then back at me. It was Tyler Haskins. And I knew that name. Everyone did. Tyler was the kid who'd been making other kids miserable since second grade. Bigger than the others, always pushing boundaries. Parents had whispered about him at soccer games and PTA meetings, but the school always brushed it off as, Tyler's a handful. I knelt next to Logan. Did he hit you? I asked softly. Logan nodded. Didn't say a word, just nodded. I stood back up. Okay, so what's the plan here? I asked, looking directly at Mr. Simmons. What consequences are happening? Because my son didn't do this to himself. Mr. Simmons gave a sigh, like I was being difficult. Mrs. Carter, while we don't condone physical aggression, you have to understand boys will be boys. These things happen. It was just horseplay that went a little too far. I blinked. Horseplay! Logan may have misunderstood Tyler's intentions. We've spoken to Tyler, and he says it wasn't meant to be serious. I stared at him, completely stunned. Are you saying my son's face is bleeding because he misunderstood being punched? His tone didn't even change. Look, we're handling it. Tyler will miss 5 minutes of recess tomorrow. 5 minutes of recess. I looked back at Logan, sweet, gentle Logan, sitting there with his broken glasses and bruised face. And in that moment, something inside me flipped. I wasn't going to be that parent, the one who quietly accepted a pat on the head and left. No, not this time. I straightened up, keeping my voice calm but very clear. If the school won't protect my son, then I will. And that was the beginning. The beginning of me deciding I wasn't staying silent. The school had no idea what was coming. Would you have reacted the same way? Or do you think I should have handled it differently? When I got home with Logan that day, I sat him down at the kitchen table. I handed him his favorite snack, apple slices with peanut butter, and just let him talk. It wasn't the first time. That's what hit me the hardest. Tyler had been pushing him, tripping him, calling him names for weeks. Logan never wanted to bother me with it. He said if I told anyone, it would get worse. Logan admitted quietly. And the teachers just say to ignore him. I swear, hearing that made something click in me. This wasn't an isolated thing. This was a pattern. One the school knew about but chose to brush under the rug. I opened my laptop and started digging. I pulled up the school's policies on bullying, page after page about how they had a zero-tolerance policy. Really? Sure didn't look like it in practice. Then I did what any angry, determined mom would do. I posted on the local parents' Facebook group. Not a rant. Just facts. I explained what had happened to Logan. I shared how the school called it boys will be boys, and how Tyler only lost 5 minutes of recess. Within an hour, comments started rolling in. Dozens of them. Other parents sharing their stories. Tyler pushed my son off the swings last year. The school told me the same thing. Boys will be boys. My daughter came home crying last month because Tyler spit in her lunch. Same response. We pulled our son out last year. Nothing was ever done. It was like opening floodgates. And the more I read, the angrier I got. I called the school the next morning and asked for an in-person meeting with the principal. Not the vice principal, the principal, Ms. Reynolds. They scheduled me for that afternoon. When I walked into her office, she greeted me with this polished, professional smile. "Mrs. Carter, I understand you're upset. Let's talk." I sat down, took a deep breath, and laid it all out. "My son was assaulted. Your staff dismissed it. I've since learned there's a long history of complaints about this boy. You're not enforcing your own policies." She sighed, folding her hands. "Ava, I'm sure you understand, children at this age are still learning boundaries. We try to mediate rather than punish. These situations are complex." "No, they're not," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Your policy says zero tolerance for bullying. There's nothing complex about a child punching another child in the face." Her tone shifted, more defensive. "Look, we've spoken to Tyler's parents. They're difficult. They don't believe Tyler's at fault. We're doing what we can within reason." That's when I realized something. This wasn't about one bad kid. This was about an administration afraid of confrontation, afraid to deal with parents like Tyler's. I pulled out a printed stack from my bag. These are copies of every story shared in the parent group in the last 12 hours. They all have one thing in common. This school did nothing. She looked at the papers but didn't touch them. "Mrs. Carter, going to social media only escalates things unnecessarily." "Exactly," I said. "I'm escalating it because staying quiet didn't work." I stood up, grabbed my bag, and said one last thing before walking out. "If you think this ends here, you're mistaken." Because I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I had a plan now. And this school was about to learn what happens when mothers stop staying silent. By the time I walked out of that principal's office, I knew exactly what I had to do. The school wasn't going to protect my son. They weren't going to protect anyone's kid. But they would protect their image. That much was clear. So, I decided to hit them exactly where it hurt, their reputation. That evening, I contacted the local news. Not the big stations, the smaller, community-based outlet that actually cared about what happened in this town. I emailed them with everything. The pictures of Logan's injuries, screenshots of the school's anti-bullying policy, and anonymized statements from other parents who had messaged me. Within 24 hours, a reporter called me back. She was a mom, too. And as soon as she heard the words, "The school said boys will be boys," she was in. The story aired 2 days later, a full segment titled, "Parents Speak Out, Bullying at Maple Ridge Elementary Ignored." They showed the photos of Logan's broken glasses, the bruise on his cheek, and even blurred out quotes from other parents who shared similar experiences. The story spread like wildfire. Local Facebook groups exploded. Parents who had been scared to speak out before were now openly sharing their experiences. Some were even contacting the school board directly. And then, the real pressure started. The school district's office was flooded with emails and phone calls. Other media outlets picked up the story. Suddenly, the phrase "boys will be boys" was being dragged across every headline in town. By the end of the week, I received a call, not from the school, but from the superintendent's office. "Mrs. Carter," the woman said, her tone a lot more respectful than anyone from the school had ever managed. "I want to sincerely apologize for how this situation was handled. We're opening an immediate investigation into Maple Ridge Elementary's handling of bullying complaints." 2 days after that, the principal, Ms. Reynolds, was placed on administrative leave, pending the investigation. The vice principal quietly disappeared from the staff directory the next week. And Tyler, let's just say his parents were no longer able to shield him. The district required a formal behavioral intervention plan. For the first time in who knows how long, there were actual consequences. But the win wasn't just for Logan. The district announced they were implementing mandatory staff retraining on handling bullying, updating policies to include clear accountability steps, and setting up an anonymous reporting system for both students and parents. I can't lie, watching it unfold felt surreal. At one point, I remember sitting at the kitchen table, looking across at Logan while he built a Lego spaceship, thinking. This all started because one kid was tired of being pushed around, and one mom was tired of being ignored. Logan asked me, "Mom, is it over now?" I smiled at him. "It's getting better. And if it's not, we'll make it better. Every time." This whole experience taught me something. Schools don't change because they want to. They change when parents demand it. Loudly, clearly, and publicly if they have to. I never wanted to be the troublemaker parent. I didn't set out to start a fire. But sometimes, staying silent is far more dangerous. And if anyone ever tries to tell me again that boys will be boys, they'd better be ready. Because I'm not staying quiet. Not ever again. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? What would you have done if it were your child? I'd really love to hear your thoughts. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.